And sometimes, it gets interesting. Sometimes you put a night person on the day shift, and it doesn't go well. Okay? They have different styles, different attitudes about working. Okay? They also take reservations if it's slow and the reservations desk is closed. Okay? You learn a lot working at the front desk. And I say, anybody that wants to go into hotel business, it's where you need to start. Now comes the really interesting shift. Right? Somebody's got to be there at night. The night auditor, I call this the vampire shift. Because if you do this job long enough, you do actually turn into a vampire, I'm convinced. Alright? Sleep all day, get up at night, if you go out in the sunlight, you kind of do one of these things. It's a great job to have. I did it for 6 months and I loved it. But I did start to feel like I was turning into a vampire. Weird hours. Okay? Now what's great about this shift is that usually it's very boring. Your night shift has already checked in your guest. You come in around 11. Most people have come in. You might have a couple of check-ins, but for the most part, there's not a lot going on. And if you're a college student, this is like a gift from above, because you can do homework, you can read, you can do a lot of things. There's one thing you can't do. It's the cardinal sin. It'll get you fired immediately. What's that? Sleep. Cannot go to sleep. If you're caught sleeping, go directly to jail, do not pass go, do not collect $200. You get fired. Okay? But when I was the night auditor, I had it made. I was at this Days Inn at Disney, and first thing I'd do at night, at 11 o'clock, I'd go to the kitchen, because the kitchen was getting ready to close. I'd order my dinner, usually a double cheeseburger, extra fries, and a milkshake. I was a young kid. My metabolism was much better. And then I would go, and I would do the paperwork. And back then, the paperwork was about 2 hours. And then I had 6 hours. And I would either read, I would either do homework, or my favorite thing was there was a little TV back there that you could turn on. Now, before Netflix, it used to be the in-room movies. And I would watch movies all night long. And I literally watched City Slickers, I counted, 114 times. So I know every line from the movie City Slickers, because it was one of my favorite movies. But I never went to sleep. You cannot go to sleep. Okay? Now, what's really interesting about being a night auditor is that it is probably weeks of boredom, but the phone sometimes will ring at 3 o'clock in the morning. And if the phone rings at 3 o'clock in the morning, it's usually not good, right? It's not someone calling and say, hey, I'm just calling to say what a great job you guys are doing, or I need more towels. It's usually, my husband's beating me, can you call the cops? Oh, it gets way worse than that, trust me. I can tell you some stories that would just freak you out. Because you know what your mom always say? Nothing good happens
after midnight.
After midnight, right? And when you're the night auditor, it's all after midnight. And when the phone rings, your heart starts going like this, because it's never, I need more towels. It's always, I've been robbed, or I'm drunk and I'm going to kill myself, or I'm telling you learn a lot about life being on the night audit. I should write a book. I should. Okay. I got robbed by a prostitute. That's good. Just the list goes on. Okay. So you learn a lot about life. The other great thing about being night auditor is it's actually your first management job, because when you're the night auditor, you are in charge of the hotel. So you have to make decisions. You have to be responsible. And so that's really many people's first taste of management. You also run reports, okay? In the old, like I say, in the old days, when I did the night audit, we didn't have computers running reports. Everything was manual. Nowadays, if you wanted to close out the books and do the night audit, what? Push a button, right? Does it all for you, right? You ever done the night audit? Yeah. Yeah. Did you ever get those phone calls?
Yeah, a few times.
Yeah. Yeah. We can write a book, couldn't we?
Yeah, I got one saying my water broke.
Yeah.
That was pretty good.
Yeah. Yep. You know, and you keep a really good relationship with the police department as well, because they're the first people you call and you want them there. Sometimes you want them there like right now. Okay. So if you get a chance to do the night audit, I highly, highly recommend it, but only do it for 6 months, because I don't want you turning into a vampire. There was a guy that did the night audit. I was his relief. He did it for 20 years, and I swear he was a vampire. I never saw him in the daylight. So take with it what you will, okay? How much should you pay for a hotel room? What's a good hotel rate?
Isn't the average 120?
Depends. Depends on what. You're right. Huh?
The type of hotel you're at.
Type of hotel, level of service, excellent. Holidays, excellent.
Yeah, like if there's like a special event, like I know like hotel rates skyrocket on like game days.
Absolutely. Special events,
And like where you are specifically? Like
location,
It's empty or not?
whether the hotel is full, empty, absolutely. Any others?
How far in advance you book?
Excellent. How far in advance you book? All great variables. So the answer to the question is, what rate do you pay? It all depends. You might pay $60 for a room, and a week later you're paying $200 for the room, just because of what's going on. It really is about the laws of supply and demand. Okay? Now, it's so complicated that we actually have a course that's dedicated to figuring out what you should charge. It's called Revenue Management, and that's what I teach. That's my bread and butter. So if you're really curious about how to price things, specifically hotel rooms, then take my class. I teach it in the spring. Okay? It's usually a senior level course, but we actually run hotels. I have a simulation, and everyone gets their own hotel, and they get to make decisions and run hotels, and it gets very fierce, the competition, because people want to prove, hey, I know more than you do. Okay? But when we talk about rates, there are different levels of rates. And if you check into a hotel room and ask all the guests in the hotel and ask them what their rate they're paying, it's going to go all the way across the board. Okay? So we typically put rates into categories, and you need to know some of these categories. The first rate you need to know is this thing called rack rate. It got its name because in the old days they used to have the racks with all the keys in them. It would have the room number, and they would have what the maximum rate would be for that room. If you know anything about rack rate, you never ever pay rack rate. It's like paying sticker price for a car, right? You never pay sticker price for a car. Now there are some exceptions. The rack rate is the maximum rate the hotel will charge. And the Super Bowl is a great example of rack rate. There's so much demand, so many people coming into town. If you don't have enough hotel rooms, you will actually end up paying rack rate. That's one of the few times where you really don't have a choice, because the hotel's going to say, here's the rate, $500, take it or leave it. And they know if you leave it, what? Someone else will pay it for sure. So why should I give you a discount when I know I'm going to sell that room for $500? Now, here's an interesting conversation my father-in-law and I had the other day. He called me because it was Groundhog's Day, And does anybody want to take a guess what the average rate was for a hotel room? Does anybody know where the Groundhog is in Pennsylvania? Punxsutawney, yes. Anybody from Punxsutawney around there? Nope. Anybody want to guess what the average hotel rate was for Groundhog Day in Punxsutawney? Very, $280, very good, very close. What was the average rate for a Super Bowl room in Houston?
Probably 700.
It was actually lower.
About 350.
250 is what they figured. Now, my father-in-law, who was a banker, a vice president for a banker, and very, good with economics, he's like, how can that be? How can people be paying less for a Super Bowl room than a room in Punxsutawney for Groundhog Day? And what's the answer?
There's more hotels in Houston than there are in that city.
You need to take my revenue management class because you are exactly right. It's the supply and demand. If you know anything about Houston, they got tons of hotel rooms. And honestly, the Super Bowl really is kind of a blip for Houston. They can take everything the Super Bowl has to offer. Punxsutawney, I don't know. There's probably two hotels in Punxsutawney. One's a Days Inn and the other's a Super 8 motel. And they probably have 100 rooms each. And you got all those journalists coming. Anybody see the movie Groundhog Day? You got all these journalists coming in. And so there's not as much demand for Punxsutawney as there is for the Super Bowl. But there is way, way less supply. And so that's why the room rates are so high. And I guarantee you, in Punxsutawney, they paid rack rate. Probably didn't pay rack rate in Houston. Okay? So below rack rate, we have an interesting label we put called best available rate or BAR. Everyone always says BAR. It stands for best available rate. This is a little bit misleading because the BAR rate